Hi, I'm Carol Paton. I'm the analytical editor of News24. In the past few weeks, everyone's been talking about the PIC and how much money it has under its control. It seems that there's always strife and drama at the PIC. And now the Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana, and his deputy, David Musondo, have been in a fight over the control of the board. A serious problem if you think that this is an organization with 3.6 trillion in investments to look after. But not too many people understand how this all works. So here's the big picture in broad strokes. The PIC stands for the Public Investment Corporation. It is owned by the National Treasury, and its job is to invest money, such as the pension savings of civil servants, in financial markets and other investments to make that money grow. It also manages the surpluses of the UIF and the compensation fund. So the first important thing to know about the PIC is that the 3.6 trillion doesn't belong to it. It belongs to public servants, both in employment and those retired, workers who pay UIF, and workers who are covered by the compensation fund. The second thing that's important to know is that the PIC is governed by legislation. The PIC Act makes the Minister of Finance the sole shareholder representative. He appoints the board with the cabinet. But the Act also specifies that the board must be chaired by a deputy minister in the cabinet's economic cluster, and that various union and worker representatives must be included on the board. The 3.6 trillion is invested in one of two types of investments. First, in stocks and bonds that are listed on the JSE. Second, in private companies, or through acquisitions and merger with private partners. The investments in the JSE are subject to JSE rules and therefore are largely transparent. It is the unlisted space where the trouble lies. The PIC's unlisted investments are made through the Isibaya Fund, which has a mandate to invest around 100 billion PIC assets. But how does the PIC choose what to invest in? There is a large advantage for any private entrepreneur who closes a deal with the Isibaya Fund. If the PIC invests in your firm by taking equity, that is a slice of it, or providing a loan in which the equity is the collateral for the deal, it is much cheaper than raising this money from the bank. The Isibaya Fund also has a developmental mandate, which means that it must use these funds to do something that is good for the country. So investing in infrastructure, like a dam, a road, or student housing is one example. Providing BE entrepreneurs with capital is another. It's not surprising, therefore, that the fight to get in at the door at the PIC, especially for black entrepreneurs, is highly competitive. It also won't surprise you to learn that because the PIC board must be chaired by a politician and must include organised labour, effectively politicians, anything and everything the PIC does is political. These three things, money, BEE, and politics, have proven a toxic mix and a recipe for corruption. If you didn't understand the PIC before, I think you're starting to get the picture. Let's skip now to the transaction of the moment, the one around Lanseria Airport, involving a BEE partner called Acapulco. In 2013, three partners bought Lanseria Holdings. They were the Government Employees Pension Fund, which got 37.5%, an investment holding company called Harith, which also took the same amount, and Acapulco, which got 25%. The GEP share was held by the PIC. Acapulco was a BEE partner. Because it had no balance sheet or access to funding, the PIC lent it 330 million to buy its stake. The transaction was structured so that Acapulco would repay the loan from dividends, but there were no dividends. Then in March 2020, COVID struck and the value of the airport plummeted. By 2024, it was time to wind up the deal and for Acapulco to repay its loan, which, with interest, had risen to around 600 million. As Acapulco could not pay, the PIC took its equity. To work out what Acapulco owed the PIC, a valuation of Lanseria Holdings was necessary. The first valuation of the 25% stake was obtained from accounting firm BDO. It was 283 million. This was far higher than the PIC's own valuation of the GEP stake, which it valued at 178 million at the end of the financial year. Acapulco rejected the BDO valuation, and a second valuation was obtained from accounting firm Crowe. They valued it at 1 billion. The PIC official who concluded that transaction accepted the Crowe valuation, and the valuation became part of a binding arbitration. The inflated valuation led to Acapulco walking away with a payment of $411 million. Had the BDO or PIC valuation been used, then Acapulco would have had to pay the PIC some $600 million. The PIC CEO, Patrick Dlamini, who was quite new in the job, found the whole thing fishy. While he couldn't stop the payment because it was part of a binding arbitration, he nonetheless decided that he would commission a forensic investigation. It was when the forensic report was about to be finalized, with the finding that Crow's valuation had been inflated by 400%, that an anonymous whistleblower report emerged, claiming that Dlamini was corrupt. Dlamini, who was suspended as a result, says he believes that Acapulco is behind the whistleblower report, which, as is easily demonstrated, has numerous false claims. You might be asking why Acapulco cares at this stage. It has just walked away with $400 million. As it turns out, Acapulco, which has only one known shareholder, somebody called Kagiso Machila, the son of former ANC diplomat Jerry Machila, is not having much fun deploying its pile of money into new investments. Dlamini's investigation and the media scrutiny around Acapulco is putting prospective partners off making any deals with Machila, which means at least there is some justice in the world. A more just outcome, though, would be if a way could be found to persuade a court that the arbitration was based in fraud and therefore can be undone. The bigger problem that needs to be tackled is the toxic nexus of money, politics, and BEE that sets the terms for the Isibaya Fund. Machila is not the first to walk away from the PIC with a ton of free money. Neither will he be the last. A new governance framework is desperately needed, and pensioners, the public, and workers must demand it.